Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily. Coming up, we had a crazy weekend. Maybe the worst trade in sports history. We've got Trevor Lane to talk about the Lakers side of that, the good part. And De'Aaron Fox got moved. Good morning, everybody. Good evening, actually. It's a second emergency podcast. I'm Dave DuFour, here with Es Baraheni and Zena Keita. And while we were setting up to talk about the Luka Doncic trade, De'Aaron Fox got moved, guys. Emergency pod. I don't know. Get the sirens going. Get the alarm bells going. Here's the deal. The Spurs get De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings get Zach LaVine, 3 first-round picks, 2025 from Charlotte, which is actually protected heavily and is going to wind up being a 2026 second and a 2027 second. The 2027 first from San Antonio, and the 2031 first from Minnesota. They also got 3 second-round picks thrown in. The Bulls jumped in on this trade, as you heard, Zach LaVine going to the Kings, and they pick up Zach Collins, Trae Young, Kevin Huerter. And Trae Young? Or, excuse me, Trae Jones.
I mean, that would have been a great return.
That would have been a really good return. I got Luka on the brain. Trae Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 pick. So they control their own destiny this year, even though it may be too late to tank for them. Zena, I'm going to start with you here. Again, we just got this news. What is your just initial reaction to this trade?
Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan back together again.
Reunited. and
it feels so okay. Does it feel good though? Is it going to move the needle for the Kings?
Yeah.
I felt so bad for the Kings when De'Aaron Fox announced that he didn't want to be there anymore. I feel even worse now that they got Zach LaVine back. Because don't get me wrong, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, absolutely known for their scoring ability. What they are not known for is winning a lot of playoff series. What they're not known for is getting to the finals. What they're not known for is being the duo that's going to elevate teams to the championship. And so I'm looking at the Kings and I'm like, I'm so sorry. You've lost De'Aaron Fox. Sure, you got Zach. You got some picks. Those picks are smoke and mirrors, folks.
Yeah.
And so I feel bad for them. Really, really bad for them.
You know what else they're not known for? Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan? Defense. They are not known for defending the basketball. And so now you have a core of Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Domantas Sabonis. All 4 guys who are, at best, questionable defenders.
3 of them who need the ball in their hands.
3 of them
on the offensive end, right?
need the ball in their hands. Although
maybe
LaVine,
even 4.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sabonis definitely needs the ball in his hands. Right. So, you're looking at a team that has a pretty skeptical fit moving forward. And so you look at Sacramento and the idea moving forward with the De'Aaron Fox trade is a win now move, right? They wanted to win now. They wanted to keep competitive. I'm not sure in this stacked Western Conference, this is a keep competitive move. And you mentioned the pick, Zena. 2025 Charlotte pick turns into 2 seconds. The 2027 San Antonio pick is going to be in the 20s. Likely with De'Aaron Fox and Wemby, which we'll talk about in a second, going to be a pretty bad pick. And then the 2031 Minnesota pick, yes, that's good, but it's also, the Earth might not exist in 2031.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen.
You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily see the vision from the Kings side, especially because on San Antonio, you have Stephon Castle, couldn't get Stephon Castle.
Right.
You had Devin Vassell, couldn't get Devin Vassell. Hey, even Keldon Johnson, you couldn't get Keldon Johnson. Jeremy Sohan, can't get Jeremy Sohan. Right. The Spurs were littered with young guys, intriguing players to go out and get.
Zach Collins went to the Bulls, and he could have maybe helped the Kings, to be honest with you. Look, the Kings side of this is very confusing to me, and it does make me wonder, okay, they can't be done. I don't know if it's moving DeMar. I don't know if it's maybe you flip LaVine and you've got
Monk,
Malik Monk. There's some more assets coming. So, this is a trade that I firmly believe on the Kings side, we probably need to wait until the end of the week before we give to. But this one trade, I mean, you lost De'Aaron Fox, who I think we all agree, maybe he's a top 40 player. He's a really good player and he's going to pair perfectly on his new team. But you just don't get much back. Zach LaVine approaching 30. He's going to be due a contract that you might not want to pay.
They wanted him. Yeah.
So I'm going to hold my judgment for the Kings side of this until I see what happens there.
Okay.
Dave, I'll just say one more thing on this. It is very clear from this move, Kings are moving away from defense. You got rid of Mike Brown.
Post defense.
Right. That whole thing was defense. Doug Christie was supposed to elevate this defense, and now you gave him a smorgasbord of scores.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Let's not forget, this team could have had Luka Doncic, and they had,
Well, apparently a lot of teams could have had Luka Doncic.
Well, the trade market may be broken. I'll get to that in a minute, but I want to finish up. Let's get back to this Fox trade. The Spurs side of this, we hit this pretty heavily as soon as we heard, hey, not only does De'Aaron Fox want out, but he wants to go to the Spurs. And we were able to talk to a bunch of people about this last week. His fit with the Spurs, I think, is very clear. You consider his age, his status, the things that he does, that he brings to late game situations, I think is going to be crucial for Wemby. As we watch Wemby just every single night. I mean, guys, I just text Wemby to people in my basketball circles, right? He the other night, he does this walking one-footed, he walks into a one-footed three, and I just text Wemby, and everyone's like, no joke. And now they have De'Aaron Fox. So, I think that this core going forward for the Spurs, and as you look just look in Texas basketball, what's happened here over the weekend, right? You've got the Rockets, who have had this great season. Now, all of a sudden, the Mavericks, it's an old team now.
Yeah.
And the Spurs are young, but they've just brought themselves, in my opinion, into contention to a certain degree. They're maybe not title contenders, but they're going to be more middle of the pack now that they have a player of De'Aaron Fox caliber. So, this is a huge move for them going forward. I think that this is the first step of building a championship level contender around Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, they have their work cut out for them this season. They're 21 and 25. They're 2 games behind for the 10 seed. So it'll be interesting to see, last third of the season, how they claw back. Because I think they will. Adding Fox is definitely enough for them to try to claw back into the play-in race. It'll be interesting to see how they can play upset, basically, for the rest of the year. I think, like you mentioned, the Fox-Wemby pairing is seamless. And one of the interesting aspects to this is that Fox can now learn from Chris Paul. And I think that's a really cool guy for Fox to learn from.
That's pretty cool.
Because the decision-making, the playmaking, the pick-and-roll pairing, all that type of stuff.
Reunited with Harrison Barnes.
Reunited with Harrison Barnes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they're basically I think that part is really intriguing to me because Fox, if anything, is a great mid-range creator, really, really good defender. One area where I would like for him to get better at is that playmaking aspect. And so when you add that, plus Fox, plus Wemby, I like it a lot. Very, very good team. Yeah.
Zena, you got anything else on this?
I just think it's so scary how when you look at the Spurs depth chart, the top name that the Kings got from the Spurs is in the 4th position for the center. 4th position for the center. It is crazy. They got away with so much in this trade. Shout out to the Spurs. They're set up for success.
Okay, so I had my brain ripped out Saturday night, guys.
We all did.
And you deserve this space.
Let me give you guys some props because, hey, I'm here every day and it's a lot of fun and we have a great time. These guys, the Emergency Podcast, excellent job on the Emergency Pod. It's worth checking out. Alex Spears jumped in with Zena and Es to break down the Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis trade. I want to tell you guys a story of how I found out about this. I was out. It's a Saturday night. I'm out visiting, seeing friends. And one of my buddies who kind of he loves sports, but he also loves to troll me a little bit. He walks in and he says, "Hey, what'd you think about that big trade?" Knowing it's like, hey, I'm having a night out with friends, relaxing. Yeah. And I'm like, there was no trade. He said, yeah, Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. And I said, this is the most ridiculous trade that anyone could have come up with. He was like, I think Shams got hacked. And I'm like, wait a second. What? And so, you go through this process. And first I was in denial because it didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
As the Mavs fan base was too.
Yeah.
And, again, we're going to get, and we've already gotten, and even here, we've gotten the knee jerk. We've gotten reporting, we're going to get reporting all week. The Mavericks, Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd had one of the most awkward and I dare say insane press conferences that I've seen in sports.
Bizarre.
And this, it may be the worst trade in any sport ever. I don't know. It's that weird, but it was so out of left field to me that I thought it must have been fake. And as we all know, not fake.
It's
at
real.
all.
Yeah.
And so I have takes on the trade, obviously.
Yeah. What's your perspective?
We want to know.
I just want to say this. The trade itself is weird. And the basketball part of it is so separate from why it's weird. It's, year 7, Luka Doncic, when he's eligible for a 5-year Supermax extension that he wants to sign, it is a break from the norms of the establishment basketball operations of the NBA to trade that guy when he hasn't demanded a trade or done something that has caused him to disparage the team or there's something negative outwardly. So unless there's something we don't know, which of course I can't know, this is completely out of left field.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, what about Karl Anthony Towns? Because I feel like there was a baby version of that happening this offseason of Karl Anthony Towns being traded, not having caused any issues, literally haven't been in the playoffs, being on a contender team.
In my opinion.
Then you have the next level. Exactly. Go ahead. Yeah.
So Karl Anthony Towns gets moved and, we all say, well, that's second apron, the new CBA.
Yeah.
Teams are trying to duck the tax.
Right.
And we've watched the way that the Jimmy Butler and Miami Heat saga has played out since the denial of the contract extension and over the course of the season. And I would say if the Karl Anthony Towns trade and the Jimmy Butler part was like cracks in the foundation of the player empowerment era, the Luka Doncic trade might have been a bulldozer. This was a team saying no to an MVP level generational talent, which is different than just generational talent. This is not De'Aaron Fox we're talking about. This is Luka Doncic. He's probably going to go down as one of the best to ever play in the NBA. We know the numbers. We know the 5-time All-NBA. We know the 5-time All-Star. We know everything about this guy. He just went to the finals last year. This is a sea change in NBA management where apparently the Mavericks have just said, no, we're not going to tolerate the way you do business anymore. And I think that the player empowerment era, I do think that we're going to look back in a couple of years and say, wow, they told Luka no. And now teams have learned they can tell guys no.
It's such a crazy stress test for that Supermax because I think the concept was, hey, Supermax is going to keep these guys in market. They will stay with their respective teams that draft them, especially when they become that caliber of player. 5-time first team All-NBA member. That's a guy who you can gladly give the Supermax to. And yet the Mavericks were hesitant to do so, which is very, very curious and very bizarre. And so to your point, yeah, it seems like player empowerment has been shattered and we might be entering a new era. Another example of this, by the way, Brandon Ingram. This is a guy who's like a mid-tier star level player, but is not going to get the payday that he wants to. Likely going to happen to Julius Randle this summer as well. So there is more and more cases of guys who are expecting a payday, are expecting something to happen, have that security, and they're not necessarily receiving it. But it's just wild that it's happening to a player who is a perennial MVP candidate.
Not even, he's like the beginning of his peak, maybe.
Yeah.
Dave, what you're stating about this player empowerment is huge. And the thing that I think was indicative of what could be the bar or the marker moving forward for management is the way that Nico Harrison used the word tumultuous. In the way that he said, basically paraphrasing, he wanted to avoid a tumultuous summer. I look at the situation in Miami. I think that's tumultuous.
Yeah.
Right. I don't look at, there's no way we could have seen anything in Dallas as tumultuous other than this money aspect.
Right.
And now, as you mentioned, as the stress test, this aspect of money being tumultuous, all of the players are on notice. Paying you is now considered tumultuous.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Could be if you're not happy with the way things are going, you make some noise. As again, the Jimmy Butler stuff, I do think is going to cause ripple effects. I mean, you have Kevin Garnett calling Jimmy Butler out for his lack of professionalism. I don't think that it starts with just Kevin Garnett seeing this stuff happening. I think it's
even
more
in
to
this
it.
Fox situation, it is like the Kings trying to get ahead of it preemptively and understanding, hey, this is a guy who's not going to sign a contract extension with us.
This is the thing. This is where the Luka thing. I do feel the Luka thing is so
shatters
unique.
It all.
He didn't ask out that we know of. There were no rumblings. He was unhappy there. he's an MVP
They
level
were
player.
all in. They were all in on building a contender around Luka. They made the finals
last year. Anyway, I've been in shock. I don't have a take necessarily on the trade because it's irrational, illogical, and just doesn't make sense. If it was a video game and I showed it to you, you'd say, man, you're just cheating.
It doesn't even work in 2K.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, shout out to Rob Pelinka. He answered the right phone call, right?
Yeah.
And this is how this stuff happens if you're the Lakers. Speaking of which, S sat down with Trevor Lane to talk about how great it is to be the Lakers right now.
The Los Angeles Lakers are a franchise of superstars, dating back to basically the start of the franchise. You think of, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Wilt, Kareem, Magic, basically anybody, right? Shaq, Kobe. It's just the list goes on. And then LeBron and AD. And now Luka Doncic. We are joined with Trevor Lane, host of Lakers Nation and the NBA Front Office Show. Trevor, we've had a little bit to digest, 24 hours of figuring out what in the world happened yesterday, shocked everybody in, I think, the sports world with this trade. How does it feel that Luka Doncic is a Los Angeles Laker?
Surreal. Definitely. I mean, there have been a number of times in the last 24 hours or so where I've like double checked and looked at the Lakers roster and went, oh my God, he's actually there. This really happened. Yeah. This is real life. In the little sleep that I got last night in the wake of the trade, I woke up probably 50 times to double check my phone and be like, wait, this actually happened. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. The Lakers, they've found a way to consistently land stars in the NBA. It's a who's who of NBA stars that have put on the purple and gold. And I got to say, Lakers fans, we are very, very spoiled for the stars that have graced this franchise. But it's been absolutely incredible. And now they've got another guy that they hope they're going to be able to build around for the next 10 years or so.
Yeah, not every team can just say, well, we're the Los Angeles Lakers. We're going to be able to attract these free agents and, basically trade for them if we decide to as well, which is the perks of being the Los Angeles Lakers. I know there's been tons of conversation about the Maverick side of things, but I think the Lakers side is equally as intriguing because they've gotten Luka now. And so they can start at the starting point of building around this superstar, one of the best players in the NBA. And I think there's a tendency, especially with the trade deadline, in the next couple of days, to think about, well, what kind of moves are they going to end up doing in this next week? What does this mean for them in the short term and long term? From your perspective, how aggressive do you think the Lakers will be at trying to build around Luka now versus maybe taking the slower approach?
I think they're going to be very aggressive. When you look at the roster as it currently sits, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You look at the Mavs roster, it makes sense. They've got pieces that all kind of fit together, even with AD coming in. They've got pieces that fit. And the Lakers roster is kind of a mess currently. They've got Jackson Hayes as their starting center because he's their only center that's not on a two-way contract. So clearly they have to address that. They have to go out and they have to find a center out there on the market, if not maybe two out there on the market that they need to go get. They need to find more defense, more three-point shooting, as you have to have in order to put around LeBron James and Luka. So they have plenty of moves they need to make, and we have to remember Luka will be extension eligible this coming summer, and so I'm sure they want to make a great first impression, make sure that he's going to sign on that dotted line this summer, and put together a team that can go win right now. So I do think we're going to see more fireworks from the Lakers. Obviously not this big, but I think they will make more moves, given that they still have that 2031 first-round pick to potentially move. I think we'll see that in play ahead of Thursday's trade deadline.
Yeah, that's probably one of the more baffling parts about this trade is that they did not have to move that 2031 pick. And, they still have Dalton Connect, still have Austin Reeves as sort of intriguing players that they could potentially move if they wanted to make a bigger splash if they'd like to. I know you mentioned certain positions and needing a center, needing some wing depth in general. Are there any players that come to mind that you think they'd target in the next couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, they've checked in on Walker Kessler with the Utah Jazz, but he's consistently been somebody who's been pretty expensive in terms of the trade price to go get. Jonas Valanciunas has been a guy that it's been connected to them for a long time now, but he didn't perform very well the other night when the Wizards played the Lakers. I don't know how much that might have dissuaded them from going after him, but there's a number of other bigs that are out there. Robert Williams is a guy they've been connected to. When you look at a player like perhaps a Jakob Poeltl with the Toronto Raptors, there's players like that. Clint Capella, very available with the Hawks. Those are all the kinds of guys that they'd be looking to potentially bring in and then have them man that center position. They've been connected with Bruce Brown for a while as well from the Toronto Raptors. That was somebody they actually thought they were bringing in free agency a couple summers ago, and then he wound up with the Pacers when they came in with that big offer. So I know they've got a lot of respect for Bruce Brown there. I don't know if they can get there financially or not, but if they do decide to focus some of their attention on the perimeter, he'd be a name I'd keep an eye on.
Yeah, that $23 million salary is kind of tough to move around, but it's interesting to see what they'll do. And obviously those names kind of fit the bill of what you want to build around Luka Doncic. It's going to be interesting to see how LeBron gets acclimated to this situation as well. Obviously, this isn't prime LeBron James. Everybody has talked about how Luka is the heir to the throne, so to speak, and LeBron is at 40 years old. But you know, after that very impressive win against the Knicks, I kind of thought to myself, well, man, they should probably get some help for LeBron James. And maybe 2-3 hours later, they traded for Luka Doncic. Joe Vardon of The Athletic reported that, you know, LeBron does not intend to waive his no trade clause. He's going to be sticking around, or at least he intends to stick around. What does this mean for LeBron moving forward, a guy who is, you know, probably going to retire in the next couple of seasons? Does this maybe reinvigorate him to reconsider and continue playing longer? I don't know, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, it could. LeBron has been pushing for the Lakers to add more ball handlers for years. It's why they got Dennis Schroeder the first time around back in 2021. It's why they made the Russell Westbrook trade, obviously for better or for worse with some of these moves that they've made. But he's long wanted other players who can initiate on offense so he doesn't have to do all of that heavy lifting. Now you bring in Luka, who he can kind of train up as his replacement on the fly. Maybe it does breathe new life into LeBron. I mean, we saw in that game against the Knicks that he's got plenty left in the tank. He was fantastic in that game. We just know he can't do it night in, night out anymore. But we'll see what this means for LeBron with Luka there. Does he take off so much of the burden that LeBron can transition into being a primarily off-ball player? And does that allow him to have even a little bit more longevity? That's yet to be seen, but I do think that there's going to be something exciting about it. You know, LeBron has spoken for years about how much respect he has for Luka, so he's going to be sad and frustrated with AD leaving, but I do think that he'll be fired up to be on the floor with Luka at the same time.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be, I mean, I think this is probably the best ball handler he's played ever, right? And so I think that aspect is probably intriguing for an older, you know, think about old man LeBron and how he'd be able to play moving forward with a guy like Luka, put him in the short role as a screener next to Luka. That stuff seems intriguing to me, at least from a basketball perspective. You go wide picture on this situation with the Lakers, and you think about what the front office has done since acquiring and signing LeBron James, getting them to that championship, trading for Anthony Davis, and kind of the subsequent moves after that, right? The Russell Westbrook trade didn't work out the way they wanted to. Some signings, not re-signing Alex Caruso. You know, there were some good moves. Obviously, getting Austin Reeves is a massive one. And drafting Dalton Connect, also another one that should be mentioned. Generally, this front office has had some hits and misses, as all front offices do. But how much confidence, I guess, do you have moving forward in the Lakers to build around Luka Doncic and build a contender around a guy who is very clearly one of the best players in the league?
You know, I think seeing them execute this move, it definitely increases confidence because they not only were able to get Luka, but they kept it quiet for nearly a month. That these talks, and I mean, in this day and age, that's that no one knew, nobody had any idea about this for that long. That is absolutely incredible.
Crazy. Yeah.
And so I think this front office has been much maligned for the mistakes that they've made, and they have made a number of mistakes, particularly the ones in the margins, simple things with contracts, not giving guys more than a 2-year deal that were on coming off of a second round pick and things of that nature because they didn't save any of their mid-level exception. The trades that they've made, some of the mid-level exceptions signings that they made not working out, guys not sticking long-term. There have been plenty of mistakes along the way, but then we also see these moments where you just go, wow, how many teams are going to be able to pull off something like this? So I do think this goes a long way towards restoring some of the confidence that fans have in this Lakers front office. And we'll see if they can pay that off and really build a great team alongside Luka. But this is an amazing move for them to get done. And I think it goes a long way towards restoring that faith.
It's an amazing moment too, because I think in terms of picturesque players to add to this team and to build around, Luka is clearly one of them. And I think when you look at the trade-off of moving a guy who is as important to the franchise as Anthony Davis, and I understand that obviously you do that every single day because of the quality of player Luka Doncic is. But sort of looking back at AD's time with the Lakers and, obviously winning a championship, becoming an incredible player, really important, basically the franchise cornerstone for this team. How is that going to be looked at, moving forward from now? AD's tenure, how is that going to be perceived by Lakers fans?
He won a championship, so I think he will be long revered in Lakerland. I think that Lakers fans will certainly miss Anthony Davis. He played hard every single night. The last couple of years especially, he has really worked to try to shed that injury-prone label that he's had on him. He plays hard on night-to-night basis. Some nights he's a little bit higher motor than others, but still, AD is one of the best defensive bigs in the NBA and can get it done on both ends of the floor. So I think there's going to be a lot of respect for Anthony Davis moving forward. And I would expect that at the end of the month here, when the Dallas Mavericks come to LA to play the Lakers, there's going to be a big ovation for Anthony Davis, because Lakers fans, I'll tell you what, Lakers fans right now are fairly split on this. And it's not so much they're not excited to get Luka. They're sad about seeing Anthony Davis, Max Christie move on to another team. So there's a lot of love for Anthony Davis out there right now. And I expect that to be something that's going to be sustained into the future.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Raptors DeMar Kawhi trade, because DeMar was such a beloved player, and then he trades him. And everybody knew that Kawhi was obviously the upgrade, but tough to see a guy who's been with the team that long go. Anyways, thank you to Trevor Lane, thank you to Zena Keita and Dave DuFour, and thank you to listening to the NBA Daily. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for waking up with us.